What is going on, guys? It's Nick here, and I'm back. Fantasy football is back. It's finally that time of year where we get to start thinking about the fantasy football season. So excited. First video going up this year. There's going to be plenty more to come. Love doing these strategy videos. This one is just going to be a fun one. We're going to be looking at the top 10 that I have right now, and it'd be cool to see how that pans out into what the top 10 actually ends up being for me. And if you look at it right now, some of you have probably already clicked off the video because you're like, whoa, where are the running backs? This guy doesn't even know what he's talking about. Gronk's not even on this list. Listen, I know what I'm talking about. I'll explain all of my picks. Let's just start right at the top with Antonio Brown. He's the obvious clear-cut number one pick in this year's draft. Honestly, he was for me last year too. Some people don't like taking a wide receiver at the top. If you want to learn more about the strategy, click my RB0 video. Maybe I'll put an annotation right around now, but one should pop up in the video. It's by far my most watched video on my channel, and it basically goes over the strategy you can use by just taking wide receivers and not taking running backs. But if you want to learn more about that, go watch that video. Basically, Antonio Brown is an absolute monster, and he's consistent. And that's what you want from your number one pick. They've got to be consistent. You've got to know that every week, from that number one and really the number two, but we're just going to talk about the number ones here, 1 through 10. You've got to know that they're going to come through for you week in and week out. The injury chance, you want it to be lower because you really don't want to lose your first round pick. But, I mean, Antonio Brown, he doesn't really get hurt, and he's just the model for consistency. With Big Ben last year, I remember he had, I believe, 4 games without Big Ben, where he had Vic and Landry as his quarterbacks. But we're not going to count those right now. His worst game with Big Ben was 6 for 51. Second worst game, 7 for 61. That's consistent. He had 9 games over 100 receiving yards, 6 games over 100 and a touchdown, 3 games with 110 and 2 touchdowns, 4 games with 180 plus and a touchdown. Those are monster numbers and exactly what you want from your number one pick. You know every week he's going to do great. It does not matter what the matchup is. He played 4 full games without Big Ben, and he had 1,800 yards and 10 touchdowns. If he has Big Ben for the full season, he can get 2,000 yards. I mean, that's just, how could you not take him with the number one pick? The only person I would possibly fathom getting the number one pick would be this next guy that I have at 2, and it's Odell. And basically, the thing with him is, he's consistent just like Antonio Brown is. He missed 1 game last year with injury, and he did start off his rookie season with a hamstring injury. I know he has had a history of hamstring injuries, so that is one thing to look at. But he had 8 games over 100 receiving yards, 7 with 100 and a touchdown, 2 games with 116, 2 touchdowns, and ended last year with 14, 50, and 13 touchdowns as a sophomore. And people always talk about the 3rd year, 4th year, somewhere around there is when people break out. I mean, there's something like he's the first 2 seasons, only Randy Moss's first 2 years in the NFL can compare. I mean, he's just been that good. Eli Manning also, people don't really think about the quarterback consistency as what health-wise, but Eli Manning is more consistent in seeing the field than Big Ben is. Big Ben does get hurt. He does have an injury history. Eli doesn't really get hurt, so you know he's going to always really have Eli. Now, obviously, you'd rather have Big Ben than Eli, but I won't get into that. He's going to have his quarterback there. He's got help now. They drafted Sterling Shepard in the 2nd round. You really don't know with like a 2nd round wide receiver. You know, he's not like a breakout guy that, you know, is going to be amazing as the number 2, or even if he is going to be the number 2 with Reuben Randle, even though Randle kind of blows. But he's going to have a little more help in the receiving core than he did last year. So you really never know. But I think basically I would expect him to post numbers he did last year. And if you get that, why would you not take him at number 2? And I guess basically it's because you want to take this guy. It's Le'Veon Bell. He's the clear-cut number 1 running back. You cannot even argue for someone else. I'll get to the other guys later coming up, but he's definitely the number 1. The only thing is the injury history. He only played 5 full games last year before he tore his MCL. Now, it's not the ACL. The MCL is, I guess, the one you'd want to tear. You don't want to touch your patella. That's the worst. Then I guess the ACL is worse than the MCL. But, I mean, he hyperextended his knee in week 17 of the year before. So it's just he does, and the running backs in general get injured more than wide receivers do. That's why I don't really like to take running backs in the first round. I'd much prefer drafting somewhere in the middle of the first round. These guys will follow me. I'll get Antonio, or I'll get Odell, or I'll get Julio, which is actually the guy I'll be talking about in a second. But if you need your running back, this is the guy you're going to take. He had 4 games last year with over 100 all-purpose yards, and he only played 5 games. Like, he's going to get you 100 yards. He'll get you about 5 catches a game, so PPR, he's a great running back. I generally only talk about standard, though. When he's healthy, you can expect 100 and a touchdown from him. And from a running back, that's really rare. It's very hard to get that from a running back this day and age. It's a passing league. Every single year, we get more and more towards a passing league, which, yes, that means you want some of these great pass catchers to get monster seasons, but it also means it's hard to get a running back. And you're going to have a great advantage over someone if you have Le'Veon and their best running back is Dion Lewis, and he only has maybe 50 total yards in the week, and you get 115 touchdowns from your running back. I guess you don't need as great wide receivers and stuff. But again, watch the RB0 strategy if you want to learn more about just taking wide receivers. But just more on Bell. I mean, he had 83 catches for 850 and 3 touchdowns 2 years ago. He's not a wide, he's a running back. He had 854 receiving yards. To add on to that, he had 1361 and 8 touchdowns rushing. He's entering his 4th season, so he's still young. Plus, he's missed time to injuries, so he's pretty fresh as far as running backs go. He's in basically like the best offense in the league. And the one thing is, if you're going to draft him, you need to draft D'Angelo Williams as backup, and you need to reach. You can't be like, oh, I'll get D'Angelo late. If someone takes him, you're screwed. You really are. You need to reach on D'Angelo maybe 2 or 3 rounds ahead of where you would draft him, because he is the handcuff. There is no one else. He's going to post pretty good numbers. I mean, RB1 numbers behind him. So you need to draft D'Angelo and reach on him. And that's also why I don't really like drafting Le'Veon. You have to draft him. Then you have to reach on a handcuff who you're not even going to play until he gets hurt, if he even does get hurt. So I just don't like doing that. The next guy up, Julio Jones. And this guy, he had a monster season too. It was overshadowed by Antonio Brown. I mean, people weren't really talking as much about Julio because of Antonio Brown's monster season. If Antonio Brown hadn't done that, we'd have been talking about the historic year Julio had. He's had back-to-back seasons with 100 catches, 1,500 yards. The only downside to him is he's not really known for his touchdowns. He only had 8 touchdowns last year, and I believe 6 the year before. Only had 2 games, or 1 game, where he had 2 or more touchdowns, and it was 2 touchdowns. He is a higher injury risk than other wide receivers are. He's had a long injury history. But that being said, he had 9 games over 100 receiving yards. He had 5 games with 100 and a touchdown. He ended the year with 136 catches for 1,871 and 8 touchdowns. I mean, that's just monstrous. And he did that on a down year for Matt Ryan. People don't really think about that. He had one of the best seasons ever for a wide receiver, and his quarterback had a bad year. I mean, if Matt Ryan has a great year, I mean, who knows what he could have done. But again, higher injury risk. That's why he's behind these 2 guys, but there's no one else you put ahead of him just because of that upside week in and week out. He's a target monster. They throw to him and him alone in that offense. So you've got to draft him. If you're at this spot and the guys ahead are taken, you've got to take this lottery pick. All right, and the next guy, DeAndre Hopkins. He's a very young wide receiver and a target monster just like Julio. 194 targets last year, 3rd behind Brown and Julio. He's playing on an offense that really he's the lone receiver out there. He's got a better quarterback this year, hopefully more consistent. I mean, he had like 4 different quarterbacks thrown to him last year. And he's still got all those targets. He had 1,511 touchdowns with awful quarterback play. So you hope Osweiler is going to be better for him. Hopefully he's got the better running game. That's what people are saying in Lamar Miller. Obviously Foster would have been better, but Foster's gone. And Foster was injured every year anyways. But he doesn't have all the scrubs in the backfield anymore. He had 8 touchdowns in 8 different games. He had 6 games over 100 yards. I mean, only 3 games with under 11 targets. So he's going to be consistent for you. He's going to get you the touchdowns. Um, I think he's a great pick. Some people might not want to take him over the running backs that are available right now. But you know what? He has so many less question marks than some of these running backs that I'm perfectly happy taking him and knowing that week in and week out he's going to produce for me. So that being said, we get to the second running back we've got in our rankings, Todd Gurley. 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns as a rookie. 5 games over 125 rushing yards, and actually it was 5 games over 100. Every time he eclipsed 100, he had 125. He had 2 games over 100 touchdown. He doesn't catch the ball in that offense at all. 188 receiving yards. But he only had 3 games under 10 points, and that's what you want from your running back. You want him every week to be producing. He missed 4 games, and he still got 1,100 yards. But we have to remember, it was a rookie season, and we have seen that before. Doug Martin, he had 1,411 touchdowns rookie year. He blew for the next 2 years. Now he's great last year again, and you say Todd Gurley is not Doug Martin. You watch him play, you know that. In an offense that's going to feed him the ball, an offense that's better this year, and a team that's improving. I get all of that. But again, it's his second year, and I just want to see more consistent play. And he's at 6. Like, I'm putting him ahead of Dez Bryant, guys. Like, I know he's great, and I know that this position is scarce, and you want a great guy, but you cannot take him ahead of the guys that I put up there. I mean, the guys 1 through 5, you can't take him in the top 5. He just hasn't produced for long enough to warrant that. So the next guy I have on this list, Dez Bryant. I mean, he's an absolute touchdown monster. I mean, do people, like, they forget? I mean, he had 16 touchdowns 2 years ago before last season where he had the injury and he had Romo getting hurt and just everything fell apart for him. He had 3 consecutive years with 1,212 touchdowns. I mean, that's great. Like, that was a great season. It's 3 in a row. Should have a good run game this year with Ezekiel Elliott. He might have more consistent quarterback play. I mean, you never know with Roethlisberger. You never know with Romo. He's probably the biggest injury risk at a quarterback position, but he loves the spotlight. And I think that he's upset about how last year went for his team and him individually with the numbers he posted. I think he's going to come out this year angry and just wanting to prove to everyone that he always says he's the best wide receiver in the league. I think watching Antonio and Julio last year, I think that got him mad, and I think he's going to produce monster numbers again this year. So I have him at 7. Honestly, thinking about it right now, I'm probably, if I'm sitting in the draft room and Gurley and Dez are there, I'm probably going to take Dez just because that's how I like to draft, and I think truly that he's going to have a great year. So the next guy is the third running back, David Johnson. And this one I'm probably the most shaky about as far as the running backs go. He might be the most overvalued player come draft time. I haven't looked at any ADPs that are happening right now, but I can tell you that people are going to overdraft him. He has 1 career game with over 100 rushing yards. I counted the playoffs, and that's against the Eagles. They were terrible last year on defense, and they're probably going to be in this year. But it was against the Eagles, and he had 1 game over 100 yards, and people are drafting him in the first round. Like, I put him on here because I needed another running back. And I looked at all the others, and I was like, well, I don't want them. So he'll be the feature back. He's a great pass catcher and a great passing offense. I get it. He's explosive. But you can't draft on situation alone. On paper, he looks great, but he's a running back, and running backs come with all of their questions. I like to see results before I draft someone in the first round, and we really haven't seen that from him. And I know Chris Johnson is gone. I know there's no one behind him. But we say that every year. There's no one behind this guy. There's no one behind that guy. And just look what happens. Someone comes out of the ranks, and you're just like, well, I guess we were wrong. And we could very well be wrong. But he could very well warrant this position. I find it hard to believe that. I guess if I had to guess, I would say that he doesn't warrant a first-round position more than he does in this upcoming draft. But, again, it's early. We don't know what's going to happen. Let's just move on to the next guy. This video is getting real long. It's Adrian Peterson. He was my number 2, I believe, last year, number 2 overall player. I mean, his worst season of his career, obviously before he beat up his kid, was 970 yards and 12 touchdowns. His worst season. If you can get that out of a first-round running back, you're pumped. All right? It is so hard to draft running backs. That's why I draft wide receivers. But I mean, last year, 14, 50, and 11 touchdowns. He had 10 touchdowns plus in every year of his career, besides obviously the year he was suspended. 1,200 rushing yards in 7 of 8 years. But he's 31 years old. Age is obviously the only issue with Adrian Peterson. He's an absolute freak athlete. If you watch him play, I mean, he's just a monster. He's the same situation with Le'Veon in that you're going to have to reach for his handcuff, Jerick McKinnon, because you need to have him. But 11, there's only been 11 seasons ever where a 31-year-old plus running back has rushed for over 1,000, and 3 where someone 32 or older has rushed for over 1,000. And he's 31. He's going to be 31 for the year. And, I mean, is age a problem with Adrian Peterson? I really don't know, but it could be. And I'd rather be a year early and getting off the bandwagon than a year late. So that's why I'm shying away from him at 9. I feel like a lot of people probably have him higher. So the next guy is Allen Robinson. If you watch this guy play, he's going to be a star. I mean, he is absolutely a fantastic wide receiver. He's going into his 3rd year, 23 years old. He's young. He's fresh. 1,400 yards, 14 touchdowns last year. His offense is pass first, second, and third. They throw the football. It's first and goal at the one, they're throwing it. I mean, the Jaguars throw the ball. Maybe that'll change now that they might have a little bit better running game, but I don't think it will. Bortles has gotten better every year. He's got 6 games over 100 receiving yards last year, 3 with over 100 touchdown. Only 4 games under 11 fantasy points. Now it's his sophomore year. He's absolutely an amazing athlete, and I see big things from him this next year. So now some honorable mentions. These maybe some of the guys that you thought would be on this list. No particular order. Gronk, Jamal Charles, Ezekiel Elliott. I will not draft Ezekiel Elliott this year. He's going to be a first rounder. Everyone's going to buy into the system of the running back in that offense. Doesn't matter who you are, you're going to be good. I just don't care. I'm not going to draft a rookie running back in the first round. I just can't do it. Dynasty obviously is different, but I just can't do that. Jamal, he's tore his ACL twice. The injury risk is a problem with him. He doesn't really have a clear backup that I can draft, so it's a little scary when you own him every week. Every time he gets tackled, you gasp a little bit, and he's going to warrant a first-round pick, so I'd rather have a wide receiver. Again, watch the RB0 strategy. That's always what I implement. It always works for me. Last, Gronk. The same basically thing as the injury problem, and the gap's kind of closing. I mean, if he doesn't get hurt, he gets 1,212 touchdowns. It's great from wide receiver, but if I can get someone in the 9th round that gets me 1,008, I think the value is better. I mean, I just do. I think the value later for tight ends is better than taking Gronk in the first round. So that's the end of the video. Hope you guys liked it. Leave some comments on what maybe you guys think the top 10 should look like. I'm obviously going to be posting more videos ranking individually by category, so top 10 running backs, top 10 tight ends and everything, and a lot of strategy videos on how to draft, how to dominate the draft, how to prepare for it, and how to be ahead of everyone else. So thanks for watching. Leave a like. If you watched this far, you at least liked it somewhat. It's like 20 minutes. Leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe if you're new. Thanks for watching.